But there is one more topic which you'll have to deal with, this reporting agent. That is nothing but information broadcasting. We'll see tomorrow. Mandantlo work kaadu. And let's go with loading performance. So how do we improve the performance of loading? We've seen with the concept point. We've seen something called indexes on a queue. When you try to build index, you're building secondary index. If you build secondary index for what? To improve query performance. But at the same time, it basically degrades your loading performance. That's why. So as a point of performance of loading, we always drop indexes of a queue, load and regenerate the index back. That was the first step. And then next step, if you remember, when you're loading it to ODS, you have like SID generations. In the DSO settings, you will find a checkbox called SID generation. Actually, in older versions, we just had a checkbox like SID generation and a checkbox. When you select that, what happens? It does do the step of SID generation during the time of activation. When you activate the data in the DSO, it does generate SIDs. So it degrades the performance of activation process. Suppose if you don't generate SIDs, activation is faster, but at the time of reporting, at the runtime, it generates SIDs and gets in. It affects my query performance. Two things: if you do SID generation during activation goes slow, but the queries will be fast because SIDs are already generated. If you don't select the checkbox SID generation, SIDs are not generated during activation process, but at the runtime of the query, SIDs are generated, so query performance is slow. So now, should I select it or no? That's my point. In the older version, we had the same checkboxes, BEX reporting and okay. In the latest versions, you will see checkboxes SID generation. In the latest version, you will have option SID generation during reporting or during activation directly. Yeah. So what? So logic is, now you're building a ODS, but you may not use every ODS for reporting, right? If you're really using ODS for reporting, makes sense to waste my time in generating SIDs during activation. But if I'm not using that ODS for reporting, don't select the checkbox. It will speed up your activation process. Good. Next, loading master data first and then loading transaction data improves your performance. Because when you load master data, SID comes, transaction data based on the SIDs, it generates dimensionally, so it is faster. Then prefer delta uploads. Because when you do delta loads, obviously you're not bringing you're reducing the data volume, you're getting what you really want. So everyone would try doing it. Now say, I give you a requirement like this. You are extracting data from some table from ECC into BW. You're trying to build a generic extractor. And you've seen that there is no date, no timestamp, no counter like field, and there is no possibility of doing a generic extractor, delta mechanism at all. Okay, can you still think about something else? If you are not able to do generic, then what is it you can think on? But I give you a hint like this, saying transactions are posted for every month. Let's say now it is July. During the month of July, I do all the changes to July. But once I go into August, only till 5th day of that August, I would change my July entries. After that, I will not. That will be blocked. I'm in July now. Only July transactions will change. Until when? Until 5th of August, I'll have my transactions of July keeps changing in. But there is no date, no timestamp, or no counter like field which is enabling for delta bus. The only option is full. If I do keep doing full, it keeps bringing huge data again and again bus. Can you give some solution where you can reduce some data volume through any mechanism here? This is the scenario you have facing, and you get an issue saying that this load is really going slow every day. And when I observe, it is a full load, and every day it is bringing millions of data. Then when I understand the logic in the source, I get to know that only current month data is modified, but the historical month data is not modified. Current month data will be modified during current month, and next month till 5th day. After that, those data is not modified. So my logic is, when it is not modified, why should I bring that same data again? So how can you do this?
Only monthly once job.
But I want the data every day for report. Every day I want my data to be refreshed in BW. If you do monthly loading, I'll have to wait until end of the month to get the reporting on July. But I want the data to be immediate level for reporting every day. Then delete and reload the cube. Which data?
Everyday transactions.
Correct thing could the need is delete. If you just say delete and reload, you're dropping all the data, loading it. It's almost like a complete full only, right? I could have used ODS also, but what is that when you say delete and reload?
The loading, trying to delete all the historical data.
It's equivalent to full, right? You're saying delete all the historical data, load again, so it's full. I didn't want to do that because when I'm doing it, it is bringing huge data, like say 5 years, 10 years of data is there, same data coming in again and again. Why should I waste my, why should I bring same data, why should I overwrite, why should I do all this?
Can you add a column for date or something?
There's no date column. So can I do it like this? I will run 2 info packages. Okay? If you can understand this logic, it's good. We call this pseudo delta. Yeah? I'll have 2 info packages. One info package running with current month, and one info package running with previous month. And the current month info package will run every day, and previous month info package will run only on 5th day of the month. Okay, got what I'm saying? I'll have one info pack with dynamic data selection coding, where month is equal to current month coding. I'll have one more info pack with dynamic data selection coding with what? Previous month. The current month info pack will be running daily. Previous month info pack will run only on the 5th day of a month. Okay. While loading this, I'll do with something called delete overlapping selections. Let's say I'm loading an info package with selection as July. If there's any data in the queue with the same data selections request, will be deleted. Will it solve my problem? So let's say my current month is running daily. Now you load, now July there are 10 records now. You load 10. Tomorrow there are 15. Again you're bringing 15 now because the selection is only July. While you're bringing 15, I'm saying delete the data in the request in the queue where the selections are same. For my request, my selection is what? July. Already the request in the queue is what? July. So it will delete those 10, loads 15. I'm not deleting June, only the July set data. So we have an option called delete overlapping selections. We'll see in the process chain. Got what I'm saying? Let's say now current month is gone. Now it gone to July. Sorry, gone to August. Now it starts extracting what? August. But July data will not be coming now. On 31st, on 30th June, my evening data is gone. But even after 30th June evening, there might be some transactions posted in July. And also they say there could be some changes in till August 5th. There could be some change. On 5th of August, my info package is running on for what? Previous month. Previous month means it takes what? July. Again July data comes in by deleting July data and loads into my queue. How many of you could understand this? Who is dealing with 0 COM CCA 9? Neither data source. This is the kind of mechanism they do with controlling where they don't want to miss. Actually, there's timestamp, but they feel that they could miss some transactions, but they can handle this kind of pseudo delta mechanism to not to miss the transactions. Did you understand this logic? Yeah. So you should be able to. You understand it, but when scenario comes in, you should be in a position to apply this position. And generally, requirement when you're extracting from DB connect, from database to some BW using DB, I'll show you if you want. It does not support delta, only full. If it is ECC you have, but if it is from flat file or if it is from databases, Oracle database or HANA database you're extracting into BW, it does not support delta, only full bus. Then your database would be huge. Then what will you do, bus?
Selection.
Then you got to use info package selection. Leveraging info package selections and reducing the result set is what we call the pseudo delta. Whenever I'll have ODS, I'll say I'll have some date or some timestamp. I'll say where date is from date to -5 days. Until now today's 10th, I'll say extract data from July 5th to July 10th. Safety, okay. Let those records come. Let it go and override. Now tomorrow it will be what? July 6th to July 11th. at the Marakundu both. So I'll write a code. Especially when you're working with DB connects, you use info package selections and restrict the data, what amount of data coming into BW. And technically it is full, but logically it is delta because of your selection. That is what we call it as pseudo delta mechanisms. And if you see that when the data is coming duplicate, you can either overwrite through ODS, or if you explicitly want to delete and reload, we can use what? Overlapping selections. Delete overlapping selections and optional to use. Okay, that was fine. Yeah. Okay. Much technical. Okay, next. Deploy parallelism wherever it is possible. Let's say I'm extracting data sets, huge data set. One is of 4 regions, south, north, east and west. One option is trigger info package which extracts millions of data. Another option is create 4 info packages, each one with different selections. One with south, one with north, one is east, west. And run all 4 parallelly. Will it speed up the loading? Yes. Wherever it is possible, we'll have to deploy parallelism like this. Okay. Now, as part of this, my question. Suppose I have data set in some source, okay, ECC. I would like to do parallelly with south and north. And I would like to enable delta also. How will you do this? How will you do this? Getting what I'm saying? I need to process separate delta for south. Can I process like this? Can I process separate delta for south, separate delta for north? Can I do that? Yes, provided you must run init also same way. I need to run one init for south, one init for north. Since when you run init for south, init delta can run for south. When you run init for north, delta can run for north. So delta will run with the same selections when as of the init load. Init load nu ఏ సెలక్షన్స్ రన్ చేస్తావో డెల్టా కూడా అదే సెలక్షన్స్తోనే వర్క్ అవుతుంది. వెరీ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్ పాయింట్. ఓకే, గుడ్. నెక్స్ట్, టైమింగ్ ఆఫ్ ది లోడ్ ఈజ్ ఆల్సో వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్. I had some person in the morning batch, he was saying we're triggering the loads, but my activations are really slow. They're waiting for the work process to be assigned. They're waiting for the work process to be assigned. Work process is nothing but you go to SM50 and you refresh. We have different set of work process bus. You can go to SM51 where you can see the server. Okay. In the real time, you can see 4 to 5 servers depending on number of servers are used. If you double click on the server, you get to see the work process. These are the ones which actually does your work. And when you see something called DIE, it's a dialog work process which is done in the foreground. And if you see BTC, these are the ones which are done in the background. Manakunde then was 3. Ante at a point of time, only 3 background jobs can be run. All background processing is taken care by background work process. So when I got 3 background work processes, obviously it has to go in what? 3 jobs can run at a time. But if you trigger 10 jobs, what happens? 3 will be running, remaining 7 will be kept waiting saying no work process allocated. So timing of the load is very very important. You should distribute the load, okay, such a way that you are not underutilizing or you are not overutilizing. ఎక్కువ వర్క్ ప్రాసెస్ నుండి తక్కువ వాడడము, తక్కువ ఉండి ఎక్కువ వాడడం కూడా చేయకూడదు, ఈక్వల్గా వాడాలి. సో you can deploy parallelism doesn't mean that you schedule 200 loads at a time, because even if I do 200 loads at a time, what happens? When I have 3 backend work process, 3 will run first, then remaining 197 would be kept waiting without a work process being allocated for it. So obviously you tend to see the timing of that as very long, because it was waiting for the work process for 1 hour, but the actual execution took only 5 minutes. What will you do then? It says 1 hour 5 minutes. So utilization of the work process is really important. If you see the server, this server system, if you see this, ఇది నాకు కొద్దిగా స్పీడ్ కావాలని చూడు, బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ పెంచుకున్నా చూడు, వస్తుంది 10 పెట్టా. ఇంకా నీకు రియల్ టైంలోకి వెళ్తే నీకు యూ విల్ ఫైండ్ 40, 50. If it is not sufficient, they'll install one more dialog instance, again increase the number of background work processes. Okay, boss? Yeah. And there is also a concept where they can actually concept for one work process they should have minimum 158 MB RAM. So based on the RAM size, they can distribute number of work processes. They'll allocate certain memory of RAM for each work process to process the data. So that's where utilization of work process. Okay. Then data packet size. Does it matter? Yeah? You should not have, let's say now I'm loading 1 million. If I say packet size is 1, any packet will form with them.
1 million.
Irrespective of the size, there is certain set of operations like binding of data. There are certain operations which is performed for every packet. So as a standard, we have 50,000 records per packet. There are projects where there is 1 lakh records also per packet. And how do you control the packet size?
Settings.
If you go to any info package, scheduler menu, data source default data transfer, here you can sorry, గుర్తుగా యూ రెండు ఉన్నాయి. Hold on, sir. So I can go with, here I can specify the maximum number of records per packet. But the logic is whatever you are specifying here, that is the size of the packet per data source. Okay. But if you want to set up the size for all the data sources of a particular source system connection, that's a different case. Whatever setting it, it's a size of the packet for this data source. So whenever you're processing data through this data source, that is the packet size used. Any data source of the connection, YPC file, I would like to have a different size. Then you'll have view v underscore idoc params అని ఒకటి ఉంటుంది. You'll have view called v underscore idoc params. ఇది మెయింటెనెన్స్ వ్యూ అంటే SM13 అప్పుడు వెళ్ళాల్సింది. Get SM30 and review this and say what maintain. Here there are sir discipline zero settings, sir. The view settings antava. Take it up. This is a table. Maintenance allowed ఉంది. Remember? Sir, see. Sir, ultimately we will show the content of table only. You'll have source system, okay? Source system name, say YPC file, okay? Then you specify the packet size in KBs. I would say 500 KB, 200 KB, I would say. How do you calculate the KB? For each key figure it is 10 bytes. And for each characteristic it is 6 bytes. And look, consider the transfer structure. Number of characteristics into 6, number of keywords into 10. That will be size of one record. And that into number of records will formulate the size of the packet. Okay. If I say 250 here, can it differ from packet to packet? For data source, because transfer structure keeps changing. In one data source you can have 5 fields, in another data source you can have 10 fields, right? I would say maximum size is 500 KB, but max lines cannot go beyond 50 though. So what I'll do for a particular data source, for a particular source, I'll find out the maximum transfer structure. For that maximum transfer structure, how much size is required for 50,000 records? I'll give this size. And if there is a data source which is less transfer structure can contain more records in that size, right? I would say max lines should go with what? 50,000. So this is like, and I would say, I'll say why PC file, this is the limitation I'm saying. Then based on this, each packet will be processed. Now this is the setting what we do per source system specific. Okay. And then this is old, but still we don't have this now. In 3.x, when we are loading info package, we used to have we used to have a tab called processing. Yes, sir. In the info package, do you have a tab called processing? Now you see only radio buttons, only PSA. But previously, other radio buttons were also enabled in 3.x flow when info package is used to load to a target. There's something like load PSA and then target in parallel or in sequential bus. You do loading in what? Parallel or sequential bus? Parallel will speed up the process. Two things. Do you want to speed up the loading or do you want to reduce the workload onto the server? If you want to speed, I'll say in parallel. If you want to reduce, I'll say only PSA, update subsequent. It will process two separate jobs. Update PSA and load subsequent target and about two different processes like VDP slower run aitadi. Parallel full parallel, but it uses more resource of the server. Okay. Then there's something called load distribution among multiple servers. This is all handled by basis, but still we can do some part of it. And for example, when you're running process chain, I can say this should run on which server on each. Yeah, see, process chain కావచ్చు, DTP కావచ్చు, ఎక్కడైతే నువ్వు బ్యాచ్ లోడ్ మానిటరింగ్ పెడతావు, take some DTP. Go to settings for batch manager. Okay, you can say preference of the job as A, and then here you can say in which server you want to run this also. So servers. Actually, but in the real time, if you go to SM51, you will find 4 to 5 servers. Then if I select a dedicated server, then I feel అంటే వాళ్ళు ఇంకా లోడ్ డిస్ట్రిబ్యూషన్ ఏం చేస్తారంటే మొత్తం గ్రాఫ్ చేస్తారన్న 5 సర్వర్లు ఉన్నాయి, ఏ టైంలో ఏది పీక్స్కి వెళ్తుంది, ఏది లోలో పెట్టుకుంటే ఇది దిస్ సర్వర్ ఇస్ రియలీ డజంట్ హ్యావ్ ఎనీ వర్క్. సో వాట్ విల్ డూ, దిస్ ఇస్ అ హ్యూజ్ లోడ్, అంటే వీ ఫోకస్ ఆన్ సర్టన్ DTP విచ్ ఇస్ రియలీ టేక్ లాట్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్, and I would like to trigger this, and I see most of the time it is waiting for the resources. Then I will say what, I'll shift this onto a server which is free during that point of time. I can explicitly control that this DTP should run on which server like this. Okay. Or even when you're executing the process chains, process is one which we generally do, right? Again, you don't know this, but I will learn this later. But when you get this process chain, one second, attributes. When you go to the attributes of this, what is it? Your process chain will have an attribute called what? Background server node. Server set to initial. Okay. Actually, we should be able to go to the attributes and say what? Background server adute, server periodical. Then the complete load of this process gets done onto that part. Okay, boss? And like this, by using this load distribution among multiple servers, also you can handle the loading performance. కొన్ని పాయింట్స్ ఉంటాయి, డోంట్ యూజ్ అబాబ్ ప్రోటీన్ అవసరమైతే వాడతాం అంతే కదా. బేసిక్లీ ద ట్యూనింగ్ ఈజ్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఇన్ ది 3 things. Okay, extraction, modeling, extracting your data, filtering, error handling, and then transformations, updating this. So I had one interview question, he was asking me, there's a load, DTP load which is running really slow, how will you do? He never asked me what was the problem, he just asked me there is a DTP which is running slow, how will you handle this? What is that approach you? In this kind of questions, they're not looking at some solution, they're looking at approach, how is that you start doing. First thing I need to focus, DTP time పడుతుంది. ఎక్కడ ప్రాబ్లం ఏంది ఫస్ట్? once you get the problem, then the analysis gets on, right? So what I'll do, I'll go to the monitor of the DTP. When I expand the packet, I see all the 4 sub-steps: extraction, error handling, filtering, or transformations, or what, updating. నేను అదే అంటాను, డీటెయిల్లోకి వెళ్ళి డీటెయిల్స్గా ఇందుకు ఒక ప్యాకెట్ ప్రాసెస్ చేసి ఏ ఫేజ్లో దానికి ఎక్కువ టైం పడుతుంది. ఇప్పుడేమి లెట్స్ ఐసి ఎక్స్ట్రాక్షన్ అంతా 5 minutes, ట్రాన్స్ఫర్మేషన్ మాత్రం 25 minutes అని ఉంది. నువ్వు అప్పుడు ఫోకస్ ఎక్కడ పెడతావు? అంతే, ఇవ్వడం అంతే. సో వాడు ఎక్స్ట్రాక్షన్ 1 second, అప్డేటింగ్ 1 second అంటే డూ ఫోకస్ ఆన్ 1 second, ఇంకేది ఫోకస్ పెట్టేది, రైట్? సో ఫస్ట్ థింగ్ ఇస్ ఐ హావ్ టు గెట్ ఇట్ టు మానిటర్ అండ్ అండర్స్టాండ్ అట్ విచ్ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ ది స్టెప్ ప్రాసెసింగ్ ఆఫ్ ద ప్యాకెట్ ఈస్ టేకింగ్ మోర్ టైమ్, దెన్ యాక్ట్ అకార్డింగ్లీ. అంటే ఓకే అని అప్పుడు ఏమంటే ఓకే, ఇట్ ఈస్ టేకింగ్ మోర్ టైమ్ ఇన్ ది ఎక్స్ట్రాక్షన్ ట్రాన్స్ఫర్మేషన్స్, వాట్ విల్ యూ డూ? Then we start analyzing I would check to see, do we have any ABAP logic implemented in any of this? Are we using standard transformations or any custom transformations by implementing ABAP code in start routines or end routines? That's where we'll have to tune them. Suppose if we're using loop within a loop, instead of doing that, why don't we replace it for all entries? Select go table, instead of reading data from table, why don't we do into internal table, then do select single, atla. Those tuning can be done, ABAP tuning can be done in the transformations and eliminate those, okay? Or you can also think about, say for example, you're processing some data and then in the end routine you're deleting the unwanted data. Instead of deleting unwanted data in the end routine, why don't we delete unwanted? If I can identify the unwanted data in the start routine itself, why don't we delete it? If I can identify those unwanted data in the DTP selections, I'll use what? DTP selection, so that the data the number of records on which the processing is done is also reduced. అట్లా లాజిక్ వెళ్తాం. సపోజ్ ఈ సేస్ ఇట్స్ టేకింగ్ మోర్ టైమ్ ఇట్ అప్డేటింగ్ అనుకో, డిపెండ్స్ ఆన్ వాట్ ఇస్ ద ప్రాబ్లమ్ విత్ ద అప్డేట్, వెదర్ ఓడిఎస్ యాక్టివేషన్ ఇస్ అ ప్రాబ్లమ్ ఆర్ ఇస్ ఇట్ విత్ ద క్యూ ప్రాబ్లమ్ ఆర్ వెదర్ ఎనీ లైన్ కెన్ ఐ ఐడెంటిఫై క్యూ విత్ లైన్ ఇట్ డైమెన్షన్, బికాస్ ఇఫ్ యూ హ్యావ్ లైన్ ఇట్ డైమెన్షన్, వాట్ హ్యాపన్స్? there is no concept of generating dimension IDs, so can we identify any of the line item dimensions? Can we make the line item dimensions here? And then alan topics keltar. Can we do partitioning of a cube? Are we dropping indexes on the queue and then reloading, or are we without deleting? Atlantic topics will get into what? When it is taking more time in updating. Generally, more time would, because for all the updating, for all the extraction, error handling, it's a standard program defined by SAP. Only it is transformations, which is what we are customizing it. Ante kada, you getting what I'm saying? When you activate DTP, it creates a data transfer program automatically. So it's all the ready-made program defined by SAP. The only transformation is the one which we are controlling it. So that's where you will have majority of the problems. Okay, now that's fine. And load distribution with parallel, making it parallel is also, so it says extraction also taking a lot of time on it. Then what I can do, instead of loading one DTP, I'll use DTP full upload with filters and do what? Multiple. Or delta DTP with selections, same delta DTPs running every day parallelly. I can do that also. And one more, recently I had one person came with some issue. He was loading data into some cube and it was going for dump. It was running for a very long time and going for dump. And what we do is, when we analyze the dump, we could see that it was failing at some select statement. And then he said, this is a monthly load. This was running fine till last month. From 2 years we were running, it was good. But that was for some reporting logic, they are doing select onto the PSA table itself. Okay, and what happened is they are loading info package to PSA every monthly. It's a full load. So today get in 1 lakh, tomorrow next month it will get what, 1 lakh 50 lakh. Then I said, why is this? No, then I analyzed what is my source. Then DB Connect was a full upload. So it's bringing repeated data every day. Then I asked him, why are you not deleting data in the PS? They have not been deleting from 3 years. They have not deleted it. Then I said, why you are not deleting data in the PS? No, we have data PS deletion. Then for deleting PS, they have got one process chain. So he went into process chain and he saw whether this PS is getting deleted. No, it was not getting. So then last change was one pair ఉంది. ఆ ప్రాసెస్ చేంజ్ చేసింది వాడే ఉన్నా అంటే వాడే దాన్ని పీకినట్టున్నాడు అంటే. సో యాక్చువల్లీ దిస్ పిఎస్ఏ వాజ్ షెడ్యూల్ ఫర్ డిలీషన్, బట్ 3 years బ్యాక్ సమ్వన్ రిమూవ్ ఇట్ ఫ్రమ్ డిలీషన్. సో ఇట్ ఇస్ నాట్ గెటింగ్ డిలీటెడ్. ఆఫ్టర్ 3 years నౌ దే ఫేస్ అన్ ఇష్యూ హియర్ సేయింగ్ అట్లా 10 million like with full complete. Now PS has become huge to a level where my select was select data from this PS table into internal table. Internal table is not able to handle the size. మరి అది ఇడిచిపెట్టి వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తున్నారంటే మొత్తం బేస్ వాళ్ళందరూ లేపేసి ఇంక్రీజ్ టేబుల్ మెమరీ అయిపోయింది, మెమరీ పెంచండి, స్పేస్ పెంచండి, ఆ లేన్స్కి వెళ్ళిపోయినారంట. లాస్ట్ చూస్తే పిఎస్లో డేట్ డిలీట్ చేయలే. నేనేమనంటే దస్ 10 million, అగైన్ నెక్స్ట్ వీక్ ఇట్స్ getting like 15 million, so there's duplicate of 10 million, so why do you need that in PSA? So you're trying to read huge data which is of no use, so delete that and then bring it. That was went through. That was one scenario. One more scenario was we are loading it to cube. So we are loading it to cube and then loading, we are doing lookup to some DSOs. So I was supposed to write a select statement on the DSO with where clause on a non-key field, non-primary key field. Okay, that for all entries selectability they did lot of things. Okay, and for one record it was taking 10 minutes. Okay, record because of that routine. Yeah. And then because either you load one record or not, it is going to read lots of data from the ODS table, so that select was taking a lot of time. Sir, that they were doing reading from DSO, right? We went into the active table of this DSO in S11, built a second index on that column. Then because not generally when you try to do a select on some table which is a primary key, because it does use primary index, it is fast. But if you do a where clause on a non-primary key column, the select will be slow. So you can solve this problem by creating index on that second index on that column. Do you know how to create second index on the S11? Adokate. So there's a DSO, okay. You get in. Let's say now I'm trying to the region with select where class region with which is not primary key. So what I can do? Index. Say what? Create index. ZIND something. And then you want unique or non-unique index. So non-unique index on which field you want? Region. Then say save. Go back. And you'll have to activate this. Index does not exist, still index are not created, so you just have to activate once. Now it says index once exists in database. Like this I can create second index on my active table of a DSO, or one more way of with the, this was the old time when we never had a flexibility in ODS, we used to create like this. But there's no concept like delete index, load index for DSO, okay? And even from RS7, now in the latest versions from BW 3.5, we also have flexibility of creating indexes while creating ODS itself. Let's say I've got a I'll say what change. Let's say you have a index. Let me change right click and say what create new index. So let's unique non-unique. Let's say okay. So I got non-unique index. Now what columns you want to use to build index? Ivanni keywords unnai kadana okkati kuda ledu. Sare I'll say on country, drag country and drag customer. So on this ODS, this will automatically whatever you build index you built on S11 from the index tab, this is same as that, okay, and same activate. It does go to create an index. And there was a scenario where we improved the performance of a query. Do we have RR report? You know, I've taught you that RSBBS. Yeah, good. I had a summary aggregated report on cube and detailed report on DSO. And from summary report I was jumping to a detailed report. For jumping it was taking 2 minutes. To jump from my summary report to a DSO report, summary report was on cube and the detailed report was on DSO. To jump it was taking 2 minutes. What a ticket. Now query slow 2 minutes in the mamula 2 minutes. No, he says I am jumping from this main query to detailed query almost 80 times a day. So 80 into 2 lekkeskonda. German okay unclear. So then what we did is we went to RSRT then we could understand the SQL query of the BEX query. Can you see SQL definition of the BEX query? Then the BEX query had because of filters, it had a where clause. It had a where clause, and where clause had say field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, field 5, field 6. Okay. Then we thought, let's build index on this DSO so that it improves my performance, because index improves reading, right? So when we went in, we already saw there was an index already. On the same 6 columns, there was an index already built in to speed up the reading. Okay. ఇంకేంద్రా అని చెప్పి సరే ఇంకేం చేస్తామని ఊరిన ఉంటే గూగుల్ చదువుతుంటే I could find the sequence of the index is also very important. So where clause sequence ఎట్లుంది, field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, field 5, field 6. But the indexing, I dragged the columns, right? But wouldn't it lag it? How did I drag now? He also dragged it, but he never worried about the sequence. ఎందుకంటే నేను ఇట్లా కిందకి లాగితే కిందకి వస్తుంది. So I drag some company code into middle, మధ్యలో అది ఇట్లా వస్తుందన్న, it comes in. So I cannot control the sequence. So ఏంటంటే by changing the sequence of the columns in the index, we could speed up that query from 2 minutes to 1 second. Even though there was an index, it was not really referring to that index because of the sequence was not matching it. అర్థమైంది, సీక్వెన్స్ వరుస కూర్చుంది 1 సెకండ్ లేసి వస్తాను అట్లాంటి అవి పాయింట్. ఓకే,
You know what is the right sequence?
depending on the SQL query. Now say you have some query, you can go to RSRT. So you go to some query, in many interviews they ask me give some complex scenario అంటే I should tell him no complex scenario, interesting scenario చెప్తా కావాల్సి ఉంటే అని I used to explain them this one. Yeah. So I'm putting it like sales order number and some order quantity. And then I'll try to put some filter on, say, year. I'm not worried whether it is showing data or not, but I want some query with some where clause. Where? Okay, good. You'll have display SQL query. You see, this is SQL query in the backend, and you see the where ravalana, where from dimmed join. Group by, order by, where pine undalne.
Where is on the top? Yes,
Where?
Between D5 and D2.
Yeah. So you see a where clause, calendar equal to 2002, change request is equal to request ID, so on. So now we also put one more also, right? Sales channel I have put. Okay, so you get the where clause like this. Now you see column 1, column 2, column 3 like this, right? I need to control the index in that sequence, because when you drag the things in the query, we don't have a flexible of writing the query like where field 1, field 2 అని ఊరు లాగుతో అది సీక్వెన్స్ ఫామ్ చేసుకుంటుంది. Based on this, I was adjusting my index sequence. అంతే. Okay. Good.
The first column, first index. Second column, second index.
No, it is one index only. In the index, you specify you're building index on 5 to 6 columns. But the sequence of the columns within an index is important.
Should be the same as in the select.
Same as on the where clause of that.